interview. So we wanted to talk to people who have actually experienced loss and then found creative ways to honor their loved ones, to turn their pain into purpose, and to understand how that impacts our grief process. So we have Suheily here for this interview, and we're just gonna hear from her, hear her story, just the amazing work that her and her husband are doing, and talk about this. So Suheily, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Doing this.
No, thank you for having me and for thinking of me to include me in this great work that you're doing, and thank you for providing this platform for people, because I think you're spot on. This is something that is needed. So thank you for pushing through and being able to do this. So I am Suheily Natal Davis. I live in Chicago. I guess my day job is I'm an attorney for a large multinational company. But when I am not working, or actually even when I am working, I'm a mom of 2 children, age 4 and 3, and I'm a wife of 7 years this year.
Wow.
And my husband and I are co-founders of a nonprofit called the Perfect Cadence that we started after losing our daughter in 2014. Okay. So our first daughter, Cadence.
Wow. So if you could just walk us through the story as much as you feel comfortable about Cadence, and then how and why you started this organization. Like, what were you thinking when you started this, and what was the catalyst for it?
Yeah, absolutely. So so I got married at the end of 2013, and it was everything that you could think of. It was a beautiful wedding and all the bridesmaids. It was just like everything you dream about. If you grow up kind of dreaming about that day. We have an amazing village, and so my husband and I were just super supportive during that process.
Yeah.
And it's that same village, right, that sustains us even today. So shortly after we got married, we found out we were pregnant. So definitely wasn't expecting it to happen so quickly. So we spent 2013 getting ready to get married, and then 2014 getting ready to welcome our daughter. And so in the same way that our village showed out for us in our wedding process, they did the same in preparing for our first daughter to arrive. And so we had so much support. We had so in anticipation for our daughter's birth, we had a huge baby shower that was put together by our friends and family, and it was beautiful. And then I also had a big baby shower that my work friends threw for me, which was amazing. And so when we went in for actually like a cosmetic ultrasound, so it was one of those 3D ones where you can get a sneak peek to how the baby might look. We went in for that at 8.5 months, and during that visit, the technician couldn't find a heartbeat.
Wow.
So we, obviously rushed to the hospital, because this was not, again, it was cosmetic, so it wasn't at a hospital.
Okay.
And just found out that her heart had stopped some point between Friday when I had my checkup visit and Sunday when we had this appointment. So at some point.
Wow.
So, it was kind of surreal. It was, you go to the hospital, they tell you they can't find a heartbeat, and then they tell you that they have to induce you to deliver.
Yeah.
And it's that's just not at all how you anticipated your birth story. I mean, so I thinking about it, I remember feeling like I was watching someone else's story. I was there, but I wasn't actually there. So we delivered her. I delivered her. As always, our friends and our family were super supportive, and just held us up, because I'm not really even sure how we made it from one day to the next. And we came home though, after being discharged to a house full of things because we had literally just had our shower the week before.
Wow.
And when I tell you they showed out, they showed out. So we had everything and more things than we could have ever, even thought of. And so we came home and we just like looked at everything and looked at each other and we were like, what are we gonna do with this? Right. Like,
Wow.
and not just this, like the physical stuff in our house, but like this, like these feelings that we have, this
Mm-hmm.
energy that we had to parent that we don't, we don't have a place for anymore.
Mm.
Um, and so kind of from those conversations, it was just like, well, you know, someone should benefit from this, right? Someone should get these things. And so, it started off kind of very specific to just making sure that the things that we had at the moment went to someone who could benefit from them. But then the conversation kind of continued and we said, well, we were just so blessed to have such a great village and everybody, there's so many babies that are born that don't have that.
Yeah.
So we just decided that that's what we would do. We would find families that, for whatever reason, didn't have either financial or familial support, and
Mm-hmm.
we would help them with whatever they needed, whether that's throwing them a baby shower and celebrating, because I just felt like every baby deserved to be celebrated the way Cadence was. Or if it's just, being a resource for them after the birth and getting them clothes and diapers and supplies. Um, and so that's what we've been doing in a variety of ways, for the past almost 6 years.
So we talked a little bit a couple weeks ago, and we were talking about how both of us kind of turn pain into purpose, and it benefits other people, these initiatives, but the reality is it also has had an impact on us. And we kind of talked about like the catalyst of like how your emotions in the beginning, how they you said something along the lines of like you wanted her to mean something. Can you talk about that point?
Yeah. It, Doing this, I think, allowed us to have more control over the story, right?
Mm,
Um, I just wasn't ready to stop talking about her, right? I just wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to talk about her in the past tense.
yeah.
And so I think doing this, it's awesome that it is a blessing to other people, but selfishly, it's for us. It's for us to be able to say that we are, I'd like to think that if Cadence would have lived and would have been here right now, she would have been a blessing, right? A blessing to us, a blessing to her friends, to the world at large, and this way, as her parents, we're just doing it for her, right? I feel like we're just kind of doing some of the good things that I know she would have done too if she were here, and it gives us something to anchor our feelings to, because I think when, like I said, we came back to our house and it's just like this feeling of like this hole in your heart, right? It's like this just, and you need, for us, I just felt we needed something tangible to do with that energy, with that desire to pour into something or someone,
Yeah.
so it definitely has enriched our lives in so many ways, and thankfully it's, hopefully also a blessing to other people. But as I mentioned to you when we talked, people will say to us, oh, what you're doing is, you know um, so selfless, and I'm like, no, it's not. It's really selfish. I'm doing this for me. you know I'm doing this for me and for her and for us. So it has really helped us channel our energy into something that hopefully is you know honors her in some way and allows us to just keep talking about her, because I didn't have a chance to make memories with her.
Yeah.
I had obviously all of the time preparing for her to come, and that was beautiful, having that time. I know that there's some people that don't even get to experience that, right? Don't even get to experience carrying a child for 8.5 months. And so I'm grateful for that time that I had with her. But I don't have memories after that to kind of cling to. And
Yeah.
so this just allowed me to create those.
I think I love what you're saying in the sense that it makes me think so much about how our loss, like what a loss means to us, is very personal. And I don't know if you got any of comments like, well, you'll have another baby or you're still young. Did you?
Yeah, I did a lot. And, when we were talking through kind of some of what we might talk about today, um, you mentioned thinking about how you have like how I have grown as a person through this process. And
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that came to mind is I feel like I'm so much more equipped now to walk through grief with others and like hold space with them, like sit in that space with them, because I know how painful it felt for me to hear, um, oh, you'll have another baby,
Yeah.
or oh, same thing, oh, you're still young, or I mean, the one that got to me the most was like, oh, God had a plan and God needed her more. And, right before we lost Cadence, unfortunately, I just lost my mother-in-law the year before.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember somebody was like, her grandma wanted her in heaven more than you needed her here with you. And, you know,
Mm-hmm.
listen, I'm a person of faith. I get it. I get the tendency to default to that.
Yeah.
But those comments were just so hurtful and stung.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it is very yes, sure, I may go on to have a house full of kids, right? But that doesn't, they're not interchangeable.
Yeah.
They're
That's
not her.
not
They're
interchangeable.
amazing, but it's not like a swap,
Take that one off
um,
this one. Yeah. No, I love
so
that.
again, all those things come from a good place, but they hurt.
Yeah, exactly. I think it minimizes it to an extent, and not, like you said, not intentionally, but people mean something. And I mean, people ask me like, do you want to get remarried? Sure.
Yeah,
Love marriage. It's not
I'm
gonna
good at it.
minimize, right? It's not gonna fix it. It's not gonna fix this. It's not gonna, you know what I mean, swap it out. It's like I still have to deal with this, and it's, I think it's like it's hard to get people to understand, like, yeah, but it's never gonna be what I had in mind. It'd be something else. It could be something amazing, but it's not this.
Yeah,
So I love how you guys have really made Cadence a part of your family. I almost feel like she has her own presence in the family. Like she's not physically here, but she's here, right? And can you talk a little bit more about like the events that you guys do, and who attends, who is it for? How do you guys go about this process?
yeah, no, absolutely. So initially we set out to host baby showers, like specifically that was the kind of goal. I think the more that we spent time with both families that needed it, the more that we looked at how we could be most impactful. Kind of expanded beyond just hosting the baby showers, but we still do those, right? So sometimes it'll be one-on-one where we will learn about a mom, or a mom will learn about us, the family, and they'll reach out. And, the timing will work out that we could host a full shower for them. And that's everything from like, I have a whole sheet, right, where I'm like, what's your favorite cake? What kind of music do you want? Do you want me to send invitations? I try to, like a quasi party planner, right?
Right. I
And
was
we,
gonna say, like, you feel like taking on party planning, and
yeah, and we book,
another skill set, right?
yeah, we book venues, and
Oh,
my husband DJs, and we
y'all
have
do everything.
we do it
It's amazing.
all.
Oh my God.
And so we still will occasionally do those one-off showers. I think we found that because we are such a like lean team, that we found that there was also a good opportunity for us to like host group showers
Okay.
for either organizations that help moms, that have a particular need, or we just to try to maximize the impact. You know, if we have 2, 3, 4 moms that we're working with at any given time, then we, you know, try to kind of lump something together and still make it special for them, right? So everyone gets their own gifts and specifically what they need, and has, you know, their own hopefully they're, you know, feel like it's special for them and not just generic. But the group showers have been, we've been doing more of those, partially because of time, frankly, right? Like,
Yeah.
we're both working and now have since, you know, been blessed with 2 more children, and so we do the group showers. And then another space where we inadvertently kind of fell into is we have, again, that village, right? That village is strong and it comes through, and a lot of them are having children now too, or had children, and have amazing things that are gently used and want to, you know, pay them forward and repurpose them. So we've kind of become this like repository for all things baby and toddler. So like our garage and our storage is full.
Oh my gosh.
So we realized that we would take these things, and we were like, okay, certainly it's good to have things on hand if people call us. Like, for example, just today, an expecting dad came by and picked up a high chair, a play yard, a box of diapers, wipes. So definitely want to keep enough stuff on hand to be available for people if they call in the moment.
Wow.
But then we also realized, like, we can't just be a storage for people's, you know, stuff. So we started doing these pop-up shops where we would we wash, we sort everything by size, and then we set it out in a space in the community. So we've done it in various parts of the city of Chicago, and we just invite people to come and like shop for free.
Wow.
And we stay until everything is gone. We get a U-Haul and we fill it up, and then we take it and we're there until the last crib is gone, the last box of diapers is gone, and then we, you know, when we re-up with more stuff, and then we do it again. So we've been doing these pop-up shops typically like twice a year, so in the spring and in the fall.
Yeah.
And then we have the showers usually in the summer, although we've done them in the fall as well, just depending. Some years we do more than others. And then on the day that in August, when was Cadence's like official due date, we try to do like a day of service. So inspiring people to either do something for someone else in her memory, or join us in doing something. So sometimes we adopt an organization that works with this population to help them. You know, just whatever makes sense that year. My goal is to grow that one day. Like, I'd really love for that day to be something like citywide, maybe, that we do, that the kids could eventually help us with. So we'll see.
I love that. So that's what I was going to ask you. So the volunteers, do you guys have a staff, or is it volunteers? And if it's volunteers, and who are the volunteers? How did you get them? Is it just kind of like the same, like you're saying, the village that you guys had as support have now transferred the energy to the organization?
Yeah.
Okay.
They're still working just as hard. And then obviously, like, new people that we've met throughout, you know, time, have you know, become helpers in what we're doing. But we are lean. I mean, just like George and I do the day to day. And then we have a small board of directors that helps us with like all of the paperwork stuff, right, that comes with having a 501c3. And then, you know, there's a lot of George's family, because that's who's here, right? So his sister. And so it is really like a team effort, like a group effort. You know, my family sometimes like donate space for us so that we can have the pop-up shops, or, you know, host a baby shower and not have to pay $600 to rent. So everyone pitches in a different way. I have lots of ideas for how we could be more impactful. I'm trying to be really prayerful on how I balance, like, I just want to do it well. You know, we talked in the beginning about kind of what our non-negotiables were when we set out to do this. And I said, I will never let anything that we do in Cadence's name have like negative energy around it. And
Yep.
just like, I would never bring that spirit to stuff. So
Oh, you talked about this gave them, the people that loved you guys, your support system, a way to support you. What are some ways that people can support folks who maybe are losing people during the pandemic? I'm always saying we're social distancing, not social isolating.
yeah, I think there were lots of like little small gestures that I think were really impactful, right? So, I mean, some of the things that just kind of culturally are traditional for us, I think shouldn't be taken for granted. I mean, the fact that people just fed us,
Yeah,
right? Like,
right. Oh yeah.
people just and we weren't social distancing obviously at the time, but especially in the beginning, I don't know that I was ready to like see people. And so they would, drop food off without needing to stay,
Okay.
and then leave notes in there for me to read later, like whenever I was ready. So
Okay.
little stuff like that. um I A friend made me a little necklace like with Cadence's initials that again meant a lot to me.
Yeah.
Also, just like checking in and even saying, I had people who were just like, I don't know what to say, but I needed you to know that I was thinking about you. So
Mhm.
I'm calling you, happy to talk or not if you
Yeah.
don't want to. And just like putting it out there, being vulnerable, like um was helpful for me, to just for us. And I know you're not asking specifically about a loss of a child, but I will say one thing I noted is that people focus so much on me, and much less on my husband.
Mm,
And he was in so much pain. And I think people maybe just, your first instinct is just to always think about the mom, but I mean,
yeah.
this was and still is so hard for him. But the focus seems to always be on the mom. So, I did say,
Thank you for
check on your dads too.
saying that. What are some ways that people can like reach out to? Because in my mind, like men need men, they need to get with the guys and like hang out. I don't know, like what? How can people support like their bros, like guys
Yeah.
that are experiencing this?
I mean, we had a friend, we have a couple that we're friends with. Um, and like, it still kind of blows my mind now thinking about it in retrospect. They live in DC,
Mhm.
and they flew here. They found out what happened. They flew here, and we were still in the hospital at the time. And the dad just came to get George and went for a walk. I
Okay.
don't know what they talked about. I don't know.
Okay.
But just like holding space with people. Like, there's no shortcut to this. And
Yeah.
you know, one of the things that we talked about, might come up is just like, what would you say to people going through this? And
Yeah.
it's,
Yeah.
there's no shortcut. You just have to like feel what you feel. But being able to hold that space with someone, even if it's just not trying to give advice and not trying to put a silver lining, but just like, I'm just here for you. And I think for men especially, because not everyone is, um, uh, my husband is particularly, comfortable with sharing
Communicator.
his emotions. But
Right.
he's very much a creative and an artist, and so he feels all the things, which is beautiful, and he can share. But not a lot of men can do that, and or women, so
Yeah.
people have different levels. So sometimes it's just like, I'm just gonna sit here with you, girl. And now in time of COVID, maybe it's just like, hey, can I call and pray for you? Can
Yeah.
I can what do you want to talk about? Like, just ask me, what do you want to talk about?
Yeah.
Because it could be this, or it could be like the Real Housewives of Atlanta reunion. And that's okay too. Um, but I appreciated also the things that people would do. Like, people would tell me that hey, I paid for a coffee for the person behind me in the drive-through. Like in Cadence's
For
honor,
the game. Yeah, that's amazing.
little stuff like that.
Can you, I don't want to forget this. Can you talk a little bit about the book that
Yeah. So my husband, he's a writer too, and we found out we were expecting. So I had my son will be 5 this year, so Cadence would have been 6. So they're just a year apart. And then my other daughter is going to be 4 this year. So they're just 14 months apart. So it's been a busy time over here. Which again, I mean, I don't want to derail this because I want to talk about the book, but I would have never thought that I'd be here. Never. You know, it's great that I can talk about it and that we can, you know, joke and kind of have these conversations, but I don't want to minimize like how dark and difficult that time period was and how dark and difficult sometimes still are. You know, I don't want to minimize that. So if you would have told me that like, Suheily girl, you are gonna survive this and still have a beautiful life, albeit not in the way you thought it was gonna look, but like you're still gonna have a beautiful life, I wouldn't have believed you because it was just so awful. I tell moms if they ask, right, like it is awful. It's awful. It's an awful feeling. It's an awful experience. There's no way to make it any better. And you need to feel all of the feelings that you have. Don't let anyone make you feel like they're not valid or that somehow you're less, your faith is, you know, weak, right. Or, you know, like, this is bad. This is bad. This is bad. So sit in it and feel what you need to feel and do what you need to do for yourself, right? Like this is a time where you can be selfish and do what you need to do to get yourself through the day, but get through the day. And I've been honest with people sometimes, like my prayer it wasn't even a prayer. It was like my question for God was not necessarily like why she didn't make it, but why I did. And I felt like a baby should be with their mom, whether it's in this side of life or that side. And so I was more like, God, why would you separate me from her? You know, like, why didn't you take me too? I mean, that was really what it was just like. And I just remember feeling that so strongly. And then, and so, but somehow you keep waking up and you're like, okay, well, I guess if I'm here and she's not, it just means that my story's still going. And I think I just feel like sometimes people just try to gloss over and rush the process. And so I to whenever I have the, you know, the honor of sitting with someone when they're going through this, you know, if anything, I just try to validate how they're feeling and make sure that they know that it's okay to feel that way. But just, you know, just try to get through the day. I mean, sometimes it's just like, how am I going to get to the next hour? And then eventually the hours become, okay, I made it to the next day. I made it to the next week. And it's not linear, as I'm sure you know, it is not linear. I'm killing it on Monday, and then on Tuesday, I'm balling in the corner.
Like, I don't know how I got here, I don't know what's going on.
Admittedly, it was less about trying and more about just not trying to. You know what I mean? If I'm being honest, it was, we didn't, my husband definitely has always wanted a big family, you know, but I remember saying to him, like, I don't know that I could go through this again. I don't know that I am capable of going through a pregnancy knowing that, you know, it could be fine the whole way through and end up this way. And so, I mean, he was very respectful and deferential and was just like, all right, you know, you know, and so it was, and then it was, I mean, it was a much different pregnancy, you know, it was a much different pregnancy. I until I looked him in the face, I did not allow myself, you know, to be calm, you know, it's like until I looked him in the face. And so that, you know, it required a whole different like set of skills to be able to get to the point where we could have him.
So you were on pins and needles, like in the pregnancy?
It was awful because again, my first pregnancy was uneventful for the most part. You know, obviously there's things that in retrospect, but I was a first time mom at the time. So I just didn't know any better. And so unless the doctor told me something was wrong, I thought everything was fine. Then I specifically, and I will say this person is like an angel. I know that this is an angel that got sent to me. I found this maternal fetal medicine, like high risk doctor, specifically only worked with moms that had experienced losses.
Wow, I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah.
Okay, wow.
And so it was him, and he did not minimize anything that I felt. And so as the pregnancy went on, obviously, you know, once you've had a loss, they have a bunch of different tests that you have to take, and you're checked on more frequently. So I was having like non-stress tests twice a week, and he'd be like, and if you want to come in every day, you come in every day.
Listen,
we got to strap you to the monitor every day. We'll strap you to the monitor every day. You know, and he just made me feel so heard.
Yes.
Because I felt like in my first pregnancy, I would say things like, oh, you know, I don't feel her moving that much. And the doctor would be like, oh, you know, she's fine. And so for him to be like, no, let's check that out. And so he was just such a blessing to me. And he, you know, he delivered our son, and really just, I found somebody that I felt like I could trust again.
Did you guys have your daughter with him as well, or did you go with someone?
Yeah, well, so that was funny. So after, so he, also was not planning to get pregnant with my daughter. And when my son was 6 months, I got pregnant with my daughter. And I went to see him, and he was just like, you know, you've had a healthy baby now, so you've graduated, and like you can go to a regular doctor now. And I was like, no, thank you. I'm gonna stay with you. And he's like, but we know you could do it now. We know the things that we have to be on the lookout for. And I was like, no, I'm good. I'm gonna stay with you. And he did have to, you know, he's like, he had a waiting list of moms, you know, that were waiting for him. And so, you know, the compromise was that I would see one of his colleagues under his like supervision, but he was basically like, you don't need me. You're okay. You can do this.
You've been nice, little bird.
And I'm like, oh, thank you. But you know what, to this day, like I said, William was going to be 5 this year. I send him pictures of him on his birthday. I pray for him often, and his practice and his ministry, because, you know, to walk with families like ours, it cannot be easy. And sometimes, you know, moms still have losses, right? Despite all of his care and attention. And I imagine that must weigh on him so heavy. So I don't know when the right time is to try again. But I also know that at least at the moment, I would have never thought that we would have had a family. So anything is possible.
Yeah. And it's almost like you see God's grace in not only blessing you to try again, but to then give you added support, to allow you to find extra support. So you had the peace of mind. You were able to communicate whatever you thought. He was very attentive. And I mean, it just kind of held your hand through that process. So
it was what I needed. I mean, I was a mess, you know. It wasn't that far after everything had happened. I was a mess. And so I think God knew that there was no way I was gonna I needed a lot of help.
I get that. So it's on my heart to ask you, like, did you experience any guilt? In your grief, did you take any feelings of like responsibility? Did that the sense of like, maybe if I had done something else, this wouldn't have happened? Did that?
I did. So normally I'm like a type A person. And I'm like a very like logical and a bit anal, and that has served me well in my professional life, but is a challenge in my personal life, right, in my relationships. And so I remember there were several I went to a doctor he had been my OB, my regular OB, you know, just normally, and then I stayed with the practice once we got pregnant. And he was a very like inspirational, positive, supportive person.
Yeah.
But I remember raising issues, like, for example, like, hey, because I was pregnant with two of my very good friends at the same time, and we were all due within like a month of each other.
Wow.
And I remember being like, hey, my friend's doctor has her doing like kick counting. You know, why don't we kick count? And he's like, oh, that's only like if you're looking for something to be worried about. Like, trust me, it's okay. And I remember they would ask at the beginning of every visit, and I don't know if they did this for you, but they'd be like, has baby been kicking? And I would say, I don't feel her kicking a lot. And then they would just move on. And I remember at one point asking, why do you keep asking me that if you never do anything about it?
Yeah.
And it always, you know, I feel like if I was at work or advocating for someone else, I would have been like, no, something is up, check it out, or hopefully nothing is up, but I want you to check and be sure. And I just felt like I didn't want to be like that crazy neurotic, you know, first time mom. And so I felt like I feel like I just relied on him too blindly as opposed to advocating for myself.
Okay.
Not saying that it would have changed anything, not saying that the story would have, you know, ended differently, but I think back to that and it's like, Suheily, you knew something wasn't right. You knew something wasn't right and you raised it and then you allowed them to like blow you off. So I wish I would have trusted my gut more.
Yeah. What did you do with that? I mean, now because you know, we don't talk about this stuff. I feel like we never talk about this stuff, which is like hence grace and grief, right? Like, we don't talk about it. Because my husband was like a stubborn Black person and didn't want to go to the doctor, like a typical Black man. I don't go to the doctor. And he knew he had a heart condition and he refused to get a defibrillator put in, you know? So obviously I would go back like, I should have made him. I should have confronted him. I should have got in his face. I should have like, you're going to get the defibrillator. You're going to get it, you know? And I didn't. I let him decide. And I, you know, tried to find another alternative route to improve his health. And I know through lots of work of processing that that's okay. I did that because I had no way of, number one, I can't control another adult. Number two, how would I know, you know, anything would happen? Yeah. So like the way that it did. So how did you solve this?
My mom, I could kind of go back to words that my mom gave me long before this, but as a child, again, I think because I'm a little bit like slightly, like I'm an anxious person, I would always be so scared of making the wrong decision about something or the wrong choice. I mean, I remember being in tears sometimes in the summer. My family's, I'm from Puerto Rico. My family's from Puerto Rico. And the summertime would come and my aunt would be like, hey, let's all go for a ride. And I'd be like, oh, but we leave grandma. And what if something happens to grandma while we're out for the ride? I can't be the only one. Like, I can't leave grandma. So no, I will stay. And I mean, I would like tear myself into like, twist myself into a pretzel, like worrying about making the right decision. One time my mom was like, all you can do and all that you are being asked to do is to make the best decision you can based on the facts in front of you at the moment. You cannot think about different fact pattern. You have the facts right there in front of you.
You can be three people.
And I find myself going back to that so often. And even with this, you know, it's like, what were the facts at the time? The facts at the time were like, I had a doctor, I trusted him. He had been my doctor for many years. I had no reason to think, you know, now I look back, especially after having a better doctor, where I'm like, well, that's what he should have done. But I didn't know that at the time. And so, you know, I think I've just had to forgive myself for just making the best decision that I knew to make at the time.
I love that. In looking at a lot of grief research, there's a concept called hindsight bias. And that is basically what we're saying. In hindsight, you feel guilty now because in hindsight, you can see all your blind spots. But at the time, you could not. could not see it. You just, if you could have done something, if you knew that there was something else, you would have done it, but you didn't know. And so you have to forgive like the former you or the you in that situation for whatever they decided to do, knowing that they did the best they could. That's so huge, because that guilt will, I feel, destroy you. I think that's one of the issues that I hit, that I panicked, and I remember calling people frantically saying, I can't let it go. Like, I can't let this part go. And people having to literally talk me off the ledge. Listen, like, get a hold of yourself. You did the best you could, you know.
It's you're being irrational, but it doesn't change how you feel.
Yeah.
You're like, yes, I am being completely irrational right now, and I'm sticking with it. Like,
yeah, that's exactly how it feels, and that's so real. So thank you for like unpacking that. I know that I'm sure there's so many people that are experiencing that, or have experienced it, or may still be grappling with that issue after years. So I think that people need to hear folks say this, and even unpack the process and kind of let you into the dynamics of how the mind, the emotions are working when we're grieving. So tell me about this book.
So we, when I was pregnant, when I was pregnant with my son, we knew that we weren't gonna all of a sudden pack anything about Cadence away, right? She's a part of us and a part of our life. And so we got to talking about how eventually we would talk about her to the kids, and well, at that point to my son. And ultimately my husband wrote this book called My Big Sister, the Angel.
Yeah. Oh my God.
And it just explains, like, it's very short, and it's in terms that the kids can understand. And it's just like, before I came, my mommy had another baby, and now that baby is an angel, and I'm so lucky because she's watching over me, and I have my own personal guardian angel, and that's about her to him. And so I'm sure it's probably weird for some people because especially, kids, right? So the concepts are a little fuzzy to them, but my son will be like he'll just be like, do you think Cadence would have liked pepperoni on her pizza? And I'm like, I don't know, but probably, why not? It's yummy, and so and then sometimes he'll ask, and now my daughter too, they're just they're capable of such depth that you don't even know, but like Marley, my daughter, was just like, Mommy, are you still sad about Cadence?
At 4?
And I'm like, yeah, Mommy, I am. I am, but she knows all about you, and just kind of, we just try to be transparent in an age appropriate way, right?
No, that's
and trying to make sure not to scare them, because like one time my son asked, like, well, how did she die? And I'm like, okay, wait a minute, I don't want to tell him something that will make him think this could happen to him.
Right.
So sometimes we're scrambling, we don't always have the right answers, but I think it's helpful. They see, like today when that dad came by to get the stuff, my son is like, what's daddy doing? And I'm like, oh, he's giving some stuff to a daddy who's, has a baby coming. Like, isn't it so awesome that we have so much stuff that we can give it to other people and still have enough for ourselves, and so who knows how the way we talk about her will evolve as they get older. But to your earlier point, like, I feel like she's very much a part of our family, and again, selfishly, that's how I want it, right? I can't have her, but I know, but she matters, and she matters.
That's amazing. I think it's an amazing example for your kids to really be birthed in a home that is modeling how to walk through grief. It's pretty much to them going to be normal. I think to understand how to see death and how to kind of accept it and make meaning out of it, and to do something with their pain, do something purposeful with hard things, and it will almost be like all they ever knew or all they ever saw. So I think that's pretty
Thank you.
which is
Yeah.
why I asked you to be a part of this.
Well, I hope if nothing else, they just will be okay with their feelings, right? And like whatever they feel, and knowing that it's okay to feel all the things that you feel. But thank you.
Yeah. Do you want to flash your t-shirt? I know you got your TT.
Oh yes, I know. I was trying to.
Right.
So this is our t-shirt. We actually, again, amazing how things come together. This is a beautiful logo. Yeah. One of George's coworkers at the time, this amazing woman, heard about the fact that we were starting this nonprofit and asked if she could design our logo, and she did it for free, and it's like beautiful, and we use it on everything.
Do you guys sell the shirts?
Yeah, so we sell the shirts. So our website is theperfectcadence.org, and that's you can find us that way on Instagram too and Facebook. But we have information on the website about upcoming events and activities. I did two things I wanted to mention before we close, just because I want to make sure I mention them to you in terms of because the topic is what you can do when you can't properly grieve, right? During this time. And I don't know if this will be helpful for anyone, but one thing that we did was plant a tree. Mm-hmm. And I didn't realize how much it would matter to me to have a place to go and sit when I need to be with her.
Wow. That's great.
So again, not everyone has the space to do that. Maybe you plant a flower in your home instead, and that's where you go when you want to be near that person or feel close to that person. But for me, I needed to have tangible things, Mm-hmm. So even we buried her, and it sounds nutty, right? But on the days that she would have had a birthday, take her little things to the cemetery, because I'm that's what moms do. They bring gifts. Mm. And I know that to my husband, he's girl, but I'm just it helps. It's a way that I could mother her, Yeah. So I go, I make sure her tombstone is clean, and I take her a little age appropriate toy. I don't know what I'll take when she would have been 15, but I take little things.
Don't take us out there, okay?
I just need sometimes. Yeah. I just need I need to tangibly.
That's so good. Just any final words to people who are in the thick of it, and I feel like we've kind of touched it, but I just want you to kind of close us out with just someone that may be seeing this and they're I'm disorientated, and I think that a lot of this is going to feel different. It's already surreal, but then to happen in the pandemic, I think is another layer of feeling surreal, because we're already not in a normal state.
You're already in a movie, and now you're in another movie because this is happening.
Yes, thank you. That's a great way to put it. So I almost feel when we exit from this time in this context, people may be hit in ways that we're not anticipating with grief. So what is something that you can offer those people? What would you say?
I mean, I think process things in digestible chunks, right? So don't see this and then think about well, what can I do in 10 years to honor this person? No, again, just is it a half day? Is it a full day? Is it a week? Just have grace with yourself to just have your own process and survive in small, whatever small time frame is necessary. But I will say, just do not underestimate your capacity to survive. You don't underestimate yourself, even though it doesn't feel like you're gonna survive this. You will.
Yeah. Lord. That's really good. That's so good. Thank you. I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time to do this.
I can give you a hug.
Virtual hug.